For 6 years, Iberian orcas have repeatedly interacted with sailing vessels off Spain and Portugal. Hundreds of boats have been damaged. 7 sailboats have sunk. Now one of the best-known orcas appears to have been shot. Why, after 6 years, is this crisis still unresolved? We spoke with Professor Emeritus Hans J. Scholl of the University of Washington in Seattle. He has studied the crisis from an emergency management perspective for nearly 3 years. Professor Scholl, what does the apparent shooting of this orca tell us?
Well, it tells us that managed coexistence is failing. We have a critically endangered orca population. We also have sailors facing repeated damage, loss of steering, and even sunk vessels. The number of new sinkings has declined somewhat. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. And it is attributable to changed sailor behavior. But fewer sinkings do not mean the safety problem has been solved. In several cases, crews escaped very narrowly and just in time. So far, remarkably, nobody has been killed. I do not think we can assume that will continue. If the situation persists, a fatality is a question only of when, not of if. And then what? What will the authorities say after the first sailors die? More importantly, how will sailors and fishermen react toward the orcas after a human life has been lost? So protecting sailors, therefore, is also a part of protecting the orcas.
Sailors are not without information. They have orcas.pt, Telegram groups, maps, and VHF reports. Doesn't that system work?
It does useful work. Rui Alves's commitment, for example, and his tireless efforts have mattered. And the Sailor Network has helped many crews make better informed passage decisions. But the system has grown far beyond a chat group. Rui has also become a sort of self-appointed verifier, interpreter, forecaster, and passage advisor. Those roles are not supported by formal training in marine biology, conservation science, or emergency management. More importantly, the system is still reactive. Someone has to see the orcas, encounter them, and report them. In our recent data, the median alert appeared about 72 minutes after the event. For attacks, it was almost 3 hours. One attack took roughly 19 hours to enter the network. So that is not continuous real-time warning. It is crowdsourced, time-delayed reporting.
So is the problem really technology or government?
Primarily, I would say it's a governance failure. Spain has had 6 years to build a coherent response. It still has no continuous detection network, no integrated common operating picture, and no dependable system for warning vessels approaching a current risk area. Instead, sailors and volunteers are carrying much of the operational burden. This is both a maritime safety problem and a conservation problem. Waiting until somebody is killed before building an adequate warning infrastructure would be an extraordinary failure of public policy. So the Spanish response remains fragmented and, my assessment, negligent.
You have also raised concerns about how the information is interpreted. What is the problem?
Well, the observation network is broad. Sailors report from many places. The scientific interpretation behind much of the operational guidance is much narrower. That creates sort of a bottleneck of knowing. Many observations enter the system while their interpretation passes through a much smaller filter. Elsewhere, a much broader toolbox is already being used. In the Pacific Northwest, for example, hydrophone networks have monitored orcas for years, At Whangarei Harbor in New Zealand, passive acoustic monitoring is being used to detect marine mammals in real time in the shipping channel, and they take according actions. In Australia, tagging techniques have been used to track whale movements and habitat use. So the Iberian response should draw on this existing wider methodological experience instead of relying so heavily on one academic source of interpretation.
What would a better system look like?
Well, I say keep the sailor network. There's nothing wrong with that, but stop treating it as the whole solution. Add independent detection. Passive acoustic monitoring, so-called PAMs, can listen continuously for orca vocalizations. That's real time. Combine that with sailor reports, VHF, AIS traffic, verified sightings, and where appropriate tagging data. Then fuse those sources into one common operating picture. A skipper approaching a risk area should receive a concise warning about current risk. And that, like in the Australia or the New Zealand cases, could go directly to the cell phone from the authorities. He or she should not have to reconstruct the picture from dozens of telegram messages. I set out this proposal in my recent SSRN paper. Passive acoustic monitoring for Iberian orca conservation and maritime safety, a managed coexistence in the Strait of Gibraltar, and that is available online. The paper proposes a phased PAM network in the strait with automatic acoustic detection integrated with vessel warning and conservation monitoring. This technology exists. What is missing is the institutional decision to use it.
Thank you, Professor Scholl.